So the locomotive is coming along quite well, and yesterday I made these hinges right here, and the hinges are going to connect a plate between the locomotive and the tender. This one's not quite put together just yet. So the hinges have to connect to this plate, which is going to go across the gap between the engine and the tender. And those come together like that, but there's a gap between the engine and the tender. That's going to be covered with a metal plate that looks something like this. Matter of fact, I have a more correct one over here somewhere. Right here. It'll be something like that. And it's going to be made out of this kind of metal, which has got a footplate thing. You can just see the striations to stop the fireman from slipping all over the place when he's trying to shovel coal from the tender into the boiler. So the process is going to be carried out on this piece of equipment right here, which is a milling machine. And in the milling machine at the moment, you can see that I've put a piece of metal down there, which is the footplate. So the milling is done with this milling machine, and switch it on. And then I'm going to crank this handle right here, which is, I want to put an extra 25 thousandths of an inch cut on, and so I've actually moved that already. And so now it's going to start cutting when I move this handle. And you'll see, hopefully a piece of the metal start flying off. I'm only taking off 25 thousandths of an inch at a time. Any more than that, I'm in danger of moving the plate, even though it's clamped with those big clamps. I don't want it to move at all, so I'm only taking off 25 thousandths of an inch. Well, you know how it is in life. If you're not really careful, you make mistakes. And everybody in life makes mistakes. Hopefully you learn by them. So what happened here was the length of this thing was supposed to be 5.5 inches. I stopped to get my camera to make a video of this whole thing, and in so doing I made a mistake, and instead of taking some metal off this bit, I took some metal off the length. So my 5.5 inches right here had to be reduced. I took an extra 1/16 of an inch off, and 8/16 is 1/2. I took off 1/16, that makes 7/16. So I've had to modify my design from 5.5 inches to 5 7/16 inches. Stupid problem, but fortunately not a big one, and I can live with the difference. Okay, so having screwed up and made somewhat of a recovery from that, I'm now going to get back to taking off this part right here, and also this part right here. And so you can see that the distance across here is 1.5 inches that I need, and down here it's 1.25 inches. So obviously I have to take off 1/4 inch all the way along. Well, I could take off 1/4 inch in one go, but it's a bit risky. I'm going to take off 1/4 inch in 25 thousandths of an inch increments. So 25 thousandths of an inch. Okay, so 1 inch, right? Let's just do this over here. 1 inch is 1.000 inches, and 1,000th of an inch is like 0.001, 1,000th of an inch. So I'm going to take off 25 thousandths of an inch, 0.025. That's 25 thousandths of an inch. And all the way down, you'll see this go down until I get to 1.25. Well, actually, let's start off with the right number. Okay, so I think I've got the right numbers now. It's 1.5 inches right here. I need to get it down to 1.25 inches. So I'm going to start with 1.5 inches, which is 1.5 is 1.5. And I'm going to take off 25 thousandths of an inch, right? So that, if I just take one from the other, equals 0. No, it doesn't make a 0. Another mistake. Take off 25 thou, it's 1.475, and I've got to go all the way down until I get to 1.25, because that 1 1/4, right, is 1.25, 1 1/4 inches. Okay, so that's what we have to do. Okay, so back to the milling machine right here. This is the scale I'm using. So I moved the work in using this handle right here to move the work that way a little bit towards the cutter, moving the work here, which is my work, towards the cutter, which is right here. But now I have to move the work this way to mill along this edge right here, and the cutter's going to take something off there. So watch. Remembering to stop where I need to stop at the end there. So next we have to make this little cutout right here. So back over to the milling machine, and you can see, maybe you can, right in there, I have to push the work in until it's just touching the cutter. And that gives me a reference. I'm winding the wheel, and I'm centering it on 0. Yeah, you can't see it too well there. Yes, you can. It's centered on 0 right there. And that's where the work is right up against the cutter, you can see there. So now with this other wheel here, I'm going to take the cutter. I'm going to pull the work back away from the cutter, even though I've now lined that cutter up with this edge right there. And now I'm going to move the other wheel over here until it reaches that mark that I've made down here. You can see where I've drawn the 3/4 inch mark is right there. It should come, by the time I've wound the wheel by the right amount, which is actually 3/4 inch. And I'll show you, I'll just take it back to where it was and then do that again. So I'll show you how it did it. Put it back here where I marked it on the 0, right? There it is, it's on the 0 again right there. And that's now with the work is lined up to the edge of the cutter right there at the beginning. So I need to move the work in 3/4 inch that way until the place where I want to cut is right there, basically. That line right there. And it's 3/4 inch. 3/4 inch is 0.750, so 750 thou. So if I wind this lever around once, this whole wheel, turn it around once, that's actually 100 thou. So it's 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, 600, 700, and just put this thing here so you can see it, 700, and wind it right around to 50, 60, 75, 175, so it's 750. It's 750 thou, 0.75, and that's 3/4 inch. And if I did it right, you can see right here on the cutter's in the right place now in that mark. So I can take it right in, and it's the correct place to make that cut. Here we go. Boom! And let's see what happens. Now I've got to wind the work in from the outside right here using this this wheel down here, get this out of the way, this wheel down here, and I'll wind that in, and you'll see the work is going in. Here it goes towards the cutter, towards the cutter, towards the cutter, and then we start cutting. So this is where the plate goes. You can see right here between the engine and the tender, and it hinges up like this. So you can see underneath there, and this is where the guys walk backwards and forwards, you see, so that stops the fireman from slipping down there between the tracks. Thank you for watching.